Just give us a second while we confirm that the stream is live. Sergeant Martinez, could you please start your recordings?
PC recording now underway.
Cloud recording and backup recording are rolling. Okay. Good morning and welcome to today's committee of the hearing of the Committee of Consumer Affairs and Business Licensing. At this time, can all panelists please turn on your cameras? Silence all electronic devices. If anybody would like to send in testimony, you can send it to us at testimony@council.nyc.gov. Again, that is testimony@council.nyc.gov. Madam Chair, we are ready to start.
Good morning. I'm Council Member Margaret Chin. I am sitting in today for the committee chair, Council Member Diana Ayala. The Committee on Consumer Affairs and Business Licensing will hold a hearing today to consider proposed introduction bill 1775B in relation to eating utensils. And the committee has invited Department of Consumer Affairs and Worker Protection, DCWP, Businesses and Trade Association, and Environmental Group, and other interested stakeholders to testify at today's hearing. First, I'd like to introduce Councilmember Van Bramer, who is the sponsor of this legislation, to give some opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Chin, for your pinch hitting duties today. And I want to thank Chair Ayala, Speaker Johnson, Jason Goldman, and the whole team, as well as the majority of the members of this council who have co-sponsored Intro 1775B, along with myself, sometimes known as the Skip the Stuff bill. I want to start by saying that this bill was drafted in close consultation and collaboration with the Reusable NYC Coalition, which includes the National Resources Defense Council, Surf Riders, Oceana, the New York League of Conservation Voters, and very importantly, with the Hospitality Alliance, the organization that represents restaurants and so many in the hospitality industry, because we want a bill that is sustainable, but that also saves money for our small businesses and food establishments. And we believe that this bill accomplishes both of these very important goals. Skip the Stuff, not unlike a law recently passed in Los Angeles, would very simply take out delivery services from providing plastic utensils unless they're requested. If folks want them, they certainly can get them, but the default won't be to throw in tons of plastic forks and knives and sporks unless that they are asked for. This relatively minor but common sense change to the way we order food will have no discernible impact on the consumer, but will save restaurants money in unnecessary costs, which of course is more important than ever with the COVID-19 losses that the industry has felt very, very powerfully. Restaurants in the US spend about $19 billion per year on takeout foodware, plastic utensils, and such, while an estimated 100 million plastic utensils are used and discarded every day in this country. New York City alone spends at least $42 million per year on waste management fees just for single-use disposable foodware. COVID-19 has more than doubled the use of food delivery apps and takeout orders placed in New York City over the last year. That's a practice that is probably going to continue. I myself order out an awful lot from my local restaurants here in Queens. The focus of this legislation is to help business and to create a new normal where we don't rely on single-use plastics with every order. It is, needless to say, very good for the environment. In California, where this law, similar law has already passed, it's estimated that small restaurants are saving over $3,000 a year in not having to provide all of these plastic utensils unless requested. Again, if they're requested, you will certainly get your plastic utensils. More than 90% of plastics end up in landfills and incinerators. And this is not good for the environment. Disposable utensils and throwaway plastics contribute to the climate crisis, but they also clog our sewers. And as we've seen here with recent superstorms in Queens and other places, the flooding can often be deadly. These products are also manufactured from fossil fuels, the primary source of global warming emissions. And to make matters worse, the momentum building to phase out the use of petroleum as a motor vehicle fuel. The oil and gas industry is counting on continued growth in throwaway plastics for future profits. We are very, very proud to bring this bill to the hearing that we're at today. I want to thank all the advocates, all of the organizations that are present. I see many of them on my Zoom screen here. And once again, thank Chair Ayala, our sitting chair today, Councilmember Chin. Again, the majority of council members in this council who have signed on as co-sponsors, and Speaker Johnson, Jason Goldman, and all the folks who have worked on the legislation, including on my team, my legislative director, Jack Bernadovitz, Chief of Staff, Matt Wallace, legislative counsel, Nicole Bean, Stephanie Jones, who's been working closely with the advocates to make this bill a reality, and everybody here today. Look forward to the testimony from the administration and the advocates, and look forward to passing Skip the Stuff once and for all. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Van Bramer. I'm also a proud co-sponsor.
Thank you.
So we'll definitely help move this forward. We also have been joined by Councilmember Yeager, Councilmember Brannan, and Councilmember Koo. I see that Councilmember Yeager has his hands up. Do you want to make a statement?
Thank you. Very briefly. I applaud Councilman Van Bramer for this bill, the intent of which is to help the environment, and I appreciate it. As I've spoken frequently in this council when we pass bills like this, the idea that we're doing something to help the environment or to help the community or to help the city with a punishing arm of a department that sends out its ticket warriors relentlessly weaponizing our statutes for purposes of raising revenue for the city is problematic in many ways. This bill in particular, even though the goals are very good, the intent is very good, the clarity of what the purpose is very good, but it provides for any person who violates the provision of this section will, in the first instance, for the first violation, receive a $100 penalty, the second time a $200 penalty, the third a $300 penalty, so on. And it does have a small section that a warning and would be issued for the first violation, but it doesn't delete the provision that it would have a fine of $100 for the first violation. So my only objection would be that when we pass new laws that businesses don't know about, and for the first time, we're asking them to do something different than they've ever done before, and then the department goes out with a summons book for purposes of enforcing these laws that we have passed with good intents for sure. The businesses end up with fines, and then we get the calls about them. How do I know? That's what's happening right now. About a year ago, we passed a bill, came out of this committee, to ban businesses from not accepting cash. The intent of that was to make sure that all businesses are available to all New Yorkers. This is a kind of a bill that most businesses didn't know that they were subject to. And for the last several weeks, for the last several months, we've been hearing about the department running around the city, rampantly throwing summonses at people. So my suggestion, and I would urge my colleagues to take a quick second, amend the bill, just to make sure that the first time a violation is issued, it's simply a warning. This is the new rule. Here's what you got to do. Don't do it again. Give businesses a chance to comply before we start slapping them with the summonses, as the department is here to deny that they will do, but we know that they do it anyway. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and welcome to your acting role today. It's good to see you.
Thank you, Councilmember Yeager, for your comment. Now I'm going to turn it over to Committee Counsel to administer the oath. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Leah Skripek. I'm a Senior Policy Analyst on the Committee on Consumer Affairs and Business Licensing, and I will actually be moderating this hearing today. So before we begin, I'd like to remind everybody that you will be on mute until you are called on to testify, at which point you will be asked to accept the unmuted by the host. During the hearing, I will be calling on panelists to testify. Please listen for your name to be called, as I will periodically be announcing who the next panelist will be. At this hearing, we will first be inviting testimony from the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection, followed by testimony from members of public. During the hearing, if council members would like to ask a question of the administration or a specific panelist, please use the Zoom raise hand function and I will call on you in order. We will be limiting council member questions to 5 minutes, which includes the time it takes to answer your questions. For all panelists, the time limit on your testimony will be 2 minutes. When called to testify, please state your name and the organisation you represent, if any. So we will now call representatives from the administration to testify. We will be hearing testimony from Gregory Anderson, Deputy Commissioner for Policy and External Affairs at the Department of Sanitation, and Stephen Etanani, Executive Director for External Affairs at DCWP, will be available for questions. At this time, I will administer the affirmation. Administration panelists, please raise your right hand and I will call on each of you individually to respond. Panelists, do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before this committee and respond honestly to council member questions? Deputy Commissioner Anderson?
I do.
Executive Director Etanani?
I do.
At this time, I'd like to invite Deputy Commissioner Anderson to present his testimony.
Thank you. Good morning, Acting Chair Chin, members of the City Council Committee on Consumer Affairs and Business Licensing. I'm Gregory Anderson, Deputy Commissioner for Policy and External Affairs at the New York City Department of Sanitation. I'm joined today by Stephen Etanani, Executive Director for External Affairs at the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony on Intro 1775, also known as the Skip the Stuff Bill. And before I get into my testimony, I want to thank Councilmember and Acting Chair Margaret Chin for her leadership on many zero waste issues over the last several years. She has been a partner, a leader, and an advocate on topics like composting, single-use plastics, and reducing waste. And I also want to thank Councilmember Van Bramer for his sponsorship of this important legislation. New York City has long been a leader in the fight to reduce the use of single-use products, especially plastics. In the last 8 years, the city has repeatedly taken bold action to take on these products, many of which are difficult to recycle, often end up in landfills, and are manufactured using harmful fossil fuels. These efforts are an important part of our efforts to fight climate change, achieve carbon neutrality, and send zero waste to landfills. In 2016, New York City passed a law implementing a 5-cent fee on all carryout bags, including the nearly 10 billion plastic carryout bags that were used in the city every year. While that law was subsequently preempted by the state legislature, we are proud to have worked with the state to enact and implement a statewide ban on plastic bags and a local fee on paper bags. These policies encourage the use of reusable bags and collect vital fee revenue to support the manufacture and distribution of reusable bags in New York City. The State Department of Environmental Conservation began enforcing this law in October 2020. In 2017, DSNY banned foam food service products and packing peanuts, following repeated attempts by the plastics industry to challenge the ban. That ban occurred as a result of a detailed analysis of the recyclability of these products, which determined that they cannot be recycled in an economical and sustainable manner. The ban on foam food service products took effect on January 1st, 2019. In April 2019, Mayor de Blasio signed Executive Order 42 to eliminate the use of city funds for the unnecessary purchase of single-use plastic foodware, including, but not limited to, forks, spoons, knives, and straws. Pursuant to this executive order, all city agencies, as well as the Department of Education and Health and Hospitals, were required to develop, submit, and implement a plan to eliminate the expenditure of city funds for the direct purchase of unnecessary single-use plastic foodware in favor of reusable, compostable, or recyclable alternatives determined eligible by the city. And agencies were required to submit their plans to the Mayor's Office of Sustainability and the Mayor's Office of Contract Services. And just last month, Local Law 64 of 2021 took effect, prohibiting food service establishments from providing plastic straws, except upon request. The law also bans all plastic stirrers and splash sticks and requires that food service establishments do provide plastic straws to customers that request them, an important protection for New Yorkers that rely on straws to eat and drink. DSNY has conducted outreach to more than 33,000 businesses to date and is sending a multilingual mailer to 69,000 businesses this month. We will continue to educate businesses and residents about this important law until the warning period expires on October 31st, 2022. Now I'll turn to Intro 1775. This bill would require food service establishments to only provide utensils upon request for takeout or delivery. These utensils include forks, spoons, knives, chopsticks, plates, bowls, cups, and lids. And they would also require food service establishments to only provide condiment packets and napkins upon request as well. While these products make up a relatively small share of the city's waste stream, this is an important symbolic and principled step toward giving consumers more agency in reducing their own personal waste footprint. And as Councilmember Van Bramer mentioned, I'm sure we've all ordered takeout or delivery and received unnecessary and unwanted plastic utensils, often wrapped themselves in film plastic, and packets of condiments. This bill will give customers the choice of whether to receive these products with their takeout or delivery food order, eliminating unnecessary waste and potentially reducing costs for businesses. We look forward to discussing this bill further with the council and working together to enact this important legislation. Reducing the use of single-use products is an important part of achieving our zero waste goals. This approach reduces our overall waste stream and encourages New Yorkers to use and reuse more sustainable and durable alternatives. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today, and Steve and I are now happy to answer your questions.
Thank you. So I now turn it over to council member questions.
We also been joined by Council Member Kalos.
Thank you.
Does Council Member Van Bramer, do you want to start with some questions?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair Chin, and thank you for your testimony. I just wanted to clarify and ask the Deputy Commissioner, like many other important pieces of legislation that we've passed along these lines, there is an education period in this bill, and wanted to ask you to speak about that because Councilmember Yeager raises a real issue. But in this bill is a 6-month education period, and maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for the question, Councilmember. With every bill like this, every new requirement that the sanitation and just for information, we at sanitation, I think would be supportive of moving this language into the sanitation provisions of the administrative code to go along with the straw bill. There's a section in there on reducing single-use products. So that's why sanitation is here testifying. DCWP is here as well to support. With every bill that's passed that imposes new requirements on businesses, the sanitation department tries to do as much outreach and education as we can, meeting businesses sort of where they are in the language that's most appropriate for them. We are currently in the process of actually staffing up a pretty sizable commercial outreach team in support of our commercial waste zones program. So we'll have a number of staff on board starting in January who can actually go out and do this work in the streets, walking down commercial corridors all over the city, working with bids, working with other business groups. We also regularly do multilingual mailers, advertising in particularly community and ethnic media outlets in a variety of languages. So we really do try to get the word out there. We're also very supportive of warning periods for these laws. We definitely want the first interaction a business has with these laws to either be an outreach employee trying to educate them, or someone, if they are doing enforcement, providing a warning for any violation.
Thank you for clarifying that. I think safe to say that none of us want to do anything that would in any way hurt our small businesses. This is a bill that would ultimately save our local small restaurants money. And that's one of the reasons why I believe in it so much. Obviously, the goals are incredibly important in terms of sustainability and having a future world to leave to our children and grandchildren. But this law itself will actually save small businesses and small restaurants money. And so there is this education period. I'm also supportive of that minor adjustment that you just mentioned. And also important here is that first violations are not met with a direct fine, right? That is something that is also in the legislation already. And I just wanted to make those 2 points and ask the agency to speak to that. I have great respect for my colleague, Councilmember Yeager, and just wanted to make sure those 2 points are clarified. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I guess, Deputy Commissioner, can you just answer what Councilmember Yeager raised? When you issue a warning, as you don't issue a fine at the same time, right?
That's correct. So for example, with the straws bill, we are issuing only warnings for the first 12 months of the bill being in place. We are doing that alongside the education and outreach to bring businesses up to speed on the requirements of that bill. So, the warnings not only include, if you were to receive a ticket, the ticket would be $100, but they also indicate, how to get more information, how to comply with the law in plain language, in multiple languages on the warning. So that's, we think, an effective communication tool for those businesses.
And you are doing that in multi-languages?
That's correct.
To the different community, yeah.
Yeah, and the mailer going out to 69,000 food service establishments and other businesses this month will include the whole range of languages that are required by law, as well as other languages. We have all of our outreach materials will be available online in many different languages as well. So we want to really make that available to as many people as possible.
Now on the, when we order food on the app, they do have a box that you can check if you don't want it. But oftentimes that doesn't work, because I always check it, and then here when the delivery comes, there's, all the chopsticks and the plastic forks and everything is still in there, and it's very frustrating. So are you planning on working with these delivery apps to maybe switch that around, that only have the box if you request to check the box and not say that you don't want?
Yeah, so I think that's part of the intended purpose of this legislation. I know the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection is working to stand up some of their other regulation of these third-party meal delivery providers. Sorry, I don't know the exact language. But they certainly could speak to how this would apply to those businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for the question, Acting Chair. This bill already contemplates an opt-out provision. So basically, consumers would have to affirmatively say that they would like utensils to be included. The default will be that they will not be included in orders, and we think that's the appropriate policy approach, as the Deputy Commissioner alluded to. As you already know, you and your colleagues have passed legislation that certainly implicates DCWP in the third-party app industry, including standing up a licensing regime just next month. So we'll be working very closely with our colleagues in sanitation to communicate any necessary regulations and education to the apps to ensure that they know their obligations under this introduction, should it be adopted by the council.
Good. That would be really helpful. I think a lot of the customer that do online and they check the box, we don't want it, and we still get it. So I think it's really good to change that around. Councilmember Bremer, do you have any other question, or other council member? No. Okay. So committee council, I turn it back to you. Moderator, I turn it back to you.
Thank you, Acting Chair. Seeing no other council members' hands raised, we'll now turn it over to public testimony. So the first witness called will be Matt Gove, followed by Carlos Castel-Croak, then Kathy Nazari and Eric Goldstein. So I now call on Matt Gove. Please begin after Sergeant's call time.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Clock is ready. You may proceed.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Chair Ayala, who's not here. Thank you, Councilmember Chin, for pinch hitting and for being a sponsor of this bill. Thanks so much to Councilmember Van Bramer for really sponsoring and pushing this bill, and the other committee members. Good morning. My name is Matt Gove. I work for Surfrider Foundation. I'm the Mid-Atlantic Policy Manager. Today, I'm representing our local chapter of volunteers, the New York City chapter of Surfrider Foundation. Basically, Surfrider is people that love the beach. We're a grassroots organization. We're trying to keep beaches clean, water clean, and keep them open for everyone. We are a member of the Reusable NYC Coalition that's been supporting this bill. And we at Surfrider support 1775B, skip the stuff. Our angle is a little bit specific. We do a lot of beach cleanups. In 2021, we did 10 beach cleanups in the Rockaways. And in just those 10 beach cleanups, we picked up over 500 plastic straws, 350 plastic lids, 120 plastic utensils, and surprising to me, almost 250 paper napkins. So as mentioned before, these are small items. They're a small amount of the waste stream in New York City, but they're really an impactful part of the waste stream as they end up out of the waste stream. They end up on the beach. They end up in our streams, our rivers, in the ocean, everywhere. And we all know what happens then, the plastic pollution crisis we're facing, where we're finding plastic in our air, our water, our soil, and our bodies, which is very scary. We support this bill because, as mentioned, it'll save restaurants money. We have a program called Ocean Friendly Restaurants.
Time expired.
Excuse me?
Time expired.
Oh, that was fast.
Just wrap up, Matt.
We'll just say, the bill is simple. It flips the script, so customers will be expecting none of the extras, and that's a great thing. It's going to be a win-win-win all around. And we thank you so much for the hearing, and please pass this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I'll now call on Carlos Castel-Croak, followed by Kathy Nazari and Eric Goldstein.
Clock is ready.
Good morning. My name is Carlos Castel-Croak, and I am the Associate for New York City Programs at the New York League of Conservation Voters. I'd like to thank Councilmember Chin, Van Bramer, and all the members of the committee for the opportunity to testify today. Since their creation, single-use plastics have plagued the environment. Our climate is impacted by the carbon emissions in their manufacturing and shipping, and the litter pollutes our streets, parks, and beaches and waterways, causing damage to wildlife. Intro 1775, also known as Skip the Stuff, is an incredibly important piece of legislation that, if passed, will help us protect and preserve our environment and public health with a simple and obvious shift in behavior. In New York City, we spend an onerous amount of time and money dealing specifically with single-use items from takeout and delivery, such as plastic utensils, napkins, and condiment packages. The mayor's office reported approximately 36 million pounds of single-use plastic foodware is collected from New York City's residential waste stream, and we single-handedly spend 42 million a year just to manage the waste from single-use cutlery. All of this processing and management is just to send these items to landfills or incinerators. None of these items are recyclable, so they degrade into harmful microplastics that threaten the health of our wildlife and can eventually end up in our food supply. Plastic production, shipping, and waste management are all fossil fuel intensive processes that pollute our air and contribute to climate change. Production and waste facilities are also often located in low-income communities of color, where the residents are already overburdened by poor air quality and other major environmental injustices. Therefore, we urge the council to pass Intro 1775 to reduce the needless waste that occurs when takeout and delivery meals come with utensils, condiments, napkins, and other accessories that consumers don't want or need. This bill, if it were to become law, would require the restaurants only provide single-use accessories when customers specifically request them. Some delivery services are already doing this, but we need a permanent mandated fix to truly reduce waste and shift culture away from reliance on single-use items. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a reminder that if council members have questions, please use the Zoom raise hand function. Next, I will call on Kathy Nazari, followed by Eric Goldstein, and then Oliver Wright. Kathy Nazari.
Clock is ready.
Thank you. Good morning, Acting Chairwoman Chin and members of the committee. I am Kathy Nazari of the Manhattan Solid Waste Advisory Board, speaking to you in support of Intro 1775, known as Skip the Stuff. MSWAB, along with our coalition partners, Brooklyn Solid Waste Advisory Board, Big Reuse, Cafeteria Culture, Citizens Campaign for the Environment, Food and Water Watch, It's Easy Being Green, Oceanic Global, Surfrider Foundation, 350 NYC, and Upstream, thank you for today's hearing and urge you to support and call for passage of this vital bill that requires restaurants, food delivery apps, and online delivery platforms to provide single-use utensils, condiments, and napkins only if requested by the customer. This legislation is simple, saves restaurants money, and reduces unnecessary waste, most of which makes its way into landfills or incinerators. Every year, billions of utensils, napkins, condiment packets, and other accessories are included in takeout and delivery food orders, even if customers don't want or need them. Almost every New Yorker has that drawer in their kitchen that is chock full of plastic utensils and soy sauce packets. According to an Overbrook Foundation report, restaurants in the US spend about $20 billion each year on such items that often get thrown out. Plastic pollution is inextricably linked to the climate crisis and threatens human health. Much of Manhattan's waste is incinerated in Newark, significantly impacting public health and quality of life of Newark's lower-income communities of color, where the childhood asthma rate of 25% is 3 times higher than the national average. This public health and environmental justice issue cannot be ignored. The solution is simple and elegant. Customers need to ask for these items only if they truly need them. Delivery and takeout food has become even more popular during the COVID pandemic. As New York City restaurants continue to struggle financially, this bill would allow them to save money on foodware supplies.
Time expired.
I'm just wrapping up. Passing Intro 1775 would be a win for consumers, restaurants, and the environment. Please show your support for this bill by passing it in your committee and urging the speaker to schedule it for a floor vote before the current council session ends. Thank you for your time, and thank you, Councilman Van Bramer, for this important bill.
Thank you. I'll now call on Eric Goldstein, followed by Oliver Wright, and then Carl Palmquist. Eric Goldstein.
Good morning, Chair.
It's ready. Go ahead.
Good morning, Chair Chin and members of the committee. My name is Eric Goldstein, New York City Environment Director at the Natural Resources Defense Council. NRDC strongly supports Intro 1775B, and it's been spearheaded by Councilmember Van Bamer, as well as 25 of his colleagues, including you, Chair Chin, and Councilmember Brannan, Koo, Kalos, Lander, and Menchaca, all members of this committee. This sensible legislation would advance two objectives that are important to the city. First, it will reduce waste and cut pollution from fossil fuel-based plastics. Most every New Yorker who orders takeout food has had the experience of receiving not only the food they requested, but plastic plates, forks, knives, cups, spoons, as well as various packets of ketchup, mustard, duck sauce, salt, pepper, chopsticks, and napkins that they didn't. Here's the unwanted junk that we've received at my family's household, and I found in our kitchen drawer yesterday. Unfortunately, on the screen, you can't even see it, and believe me, millions of New Yorkers' households are receiving all of this same amount of junk, and New York City Sanitation Department and taxpayers are paying to dump it in landfills and incinerators every year, to say nothing of the environmental and climate change inducing impacts of producing all this throwaway plastic in the first place. And of course, the amount of this plastic has increased in the pandemic. Studies show that takeout and delivery orders have more than doubled since March 2020, and the consumers indicate that they're going to continue ordering takeout meals even after the pandemic is under control. Second major benefit from the proposed legislation is obvious: reduced costs to our beloved and beleaguered restaurants. Right now, they're spending large sums of money every year to purchase all of these utensils, only to have most of it tossed out unused or into kitchen drawers or the garbage can. The Los Angeles City Council enacted similar legislation, utensils on request, earlier this year for restaurants, and the sponsor of that bill reported that restaurants that had begun implementing the policy in California were saving $3,000 or more a year in reduced costs. And if this committee passes Intro 1775B and the council follows suit, you'll be following other cities that have already adopted similar legislation, including Seattle, Portland, Honolulu, and Denver. This is a sensible, environmentally sound, restaurant-friendly piece of legislation, and it's a fitting bill for the holiday season and to end the council's, this council's legacy of environmental advances. Finally, in response to Councilman Yeager and his question, which is a legitimate one, the current legislation definitely includes a provision indicating that the first violation will be treated as a warning and a fine will not be issued, which is exactly why this bill is supported by the restaurant industry, including the New York City Hospitality Alliance. Thank you for your attention. We look forward to both the committee and the council passing this bill this year. And thank you, Chair Chin, for your leadership.
Thank you. I noticed that Councilmember Van Bramer has his hand raised.
Yes, thank you, Eric. Could you put up that poster board again for everyone to see and for my staff to get a picture of it?
Yeah. Yes, I can, the council member. And what I will do is I will, in my written testimony, I will take a picture of this, and as soon as this hearing is done, I will make sure to send this by email to your staff, which has played such an important role in advancing this legislation. Again, this was just in our family's kitchen drawer, which I found yesterday, but you can't even see all of it. And just a small sampling of what we have received throughout the year in unwanted takeout materials.
No, I have the same thing as I alluded to before. I'm not a good cook at all, and so we order out, but I love ordering out because we're supporting our local small businesses, of course, right? I mean, I'm glad that takeout orders have jumped in many ways, but I'm so frustrated when I get even those big plastic plates, right? And they come in the order, and you're like, how did that happen? I obviously don't need that and want that. So thank you for that, Eric. And also thank you for reporting again, I mentioned it, you've mentioned it a few times, the Hospitality Alliance, and Andrew Riggy, who's been obviously out there championing our restaurants and our local small businesses. We've written this bill in consultation with them as well. They're supportive. And I know that Andrew is not able to be here, but is submitting supportive testimony on behalf of this legislation. So thank you again.
And thank you for your leadership, Council Member.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I noticed that Councilmember Yeager has his hand raised.
Clock is ready.
Thank you very much, Mr. Goldstein. It's good to see you. I agree with your comment about what that section about the penalty says, but my point is that, like you, I'm a lawyer. I read the words, and the words mean what they say. There's an inconsistency in that paragraph. I think you would agree. It says, in the first instance, it says that there will be a penalty for the first violation, and then at the closing, it says there won't be a penalty for the first violation. There's a way to make statutes clearer. I'm sure that you agree, having been involved in many lawsuits about statutes and what they say and what they mean. And I think that there's a way we could do this very clearly so that the agency doesn't get the mixed signal when they send out their summons warriors with marching orders into our small businesses across the city. And I don't think there's a single council member who would mind if perhaps some of our restaurants and eateries don't get fines for a little while so that they can get a chance to comply with this.
I think we're all in agreement and supportive of that, Council Member.
Thank you. It's good to see you.
Same here.
Thank you. Councilmember Van Bramer, you have another question?
Just want to say to Councilmember Yeager, I too am in support of that clarification, which is an important one.
Thank you. Before I call the next witness, I'd just like to remind everybody that you could submit your testimony to testimony@council.nyc.gov. The next member of the public we'll call is Oliver Wright, followed by Carl Palmquist, and then Cassia Patel. Oliver Wright.
Clock is ready.
Good afternoon, Acting Chair Chin and members of the committee. My name is Oliver Wright, and I'm pleased to provide testimony at this hearing on behalf of the Brooklyn Solid Waste Advisory Board. Thank you for taking the time to hold a hearing on this important topic so late in the session, and thank you to Councilmember Van Bramer and everybody else who has sponsored, brought, supported and championed this bill. The Brooklyn Swab supports the New York City Council's Intro 1775B as a simple and effective way to significantly reduce this problematic waste stream in New York City. We know from the Department of Sanitation's 2017 waste characterization study that single-use plastic, food-related items, and food-soiled paper make up nearly 9% of residential waste in New York City. Given the rise in takeout orders as a result of COVID, this figure is only likely to have increased in the interim. By requiring restaurants and third-party platforms to provide condiments, napkins, and plastic utensils on demand, this bill approaches the problem from the top of the waste hierarchy by eliminating the waste at source. This bill serves as a complement to the recently passed Straws on Request bill and the 2019 mayoral decree to end New York City agencies' purchasing of single-use plastic foodware. A decrease in the number of single-use items distributed reduces costs for restaurants already struggling as a result of the pandemic, and would save the Department of Sanitation the costs of cleaning up and processing the resulting litter and trash, including costs for street cleaning, exporting, landfilling, and incineration. Because the policy allows for these single-use items to be given by request instead of by default, the bill will not create problems of accessibility, as the option to receive these items will remain for any customer who so chooses. According to the World Wildlife Federation, annual plastic waste generation is set to increase by 41% over the next 15 years. The solution to the plastic pollution crisis will not be market-driven. This necessary reduction must start with legislation. We therefore strongly encourage the Council to pass this bill and hope that this simple measure feeds the will in both the Council and the electorate for further urgently needed climate and waste reduction policy. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Next, I will call on Carl Palmquist, followed by Cassia Patel, and then Brian Langloss. Carl Palmquist.
Hello.
Clock is
Hello. Thank you to the committee for giving me the chance to testify today. I'm Carl Palmquist, Vice Chair of the Sierra Club New York City Group. I'm a scientist on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, and I've written about the intersections between environmental and human health. We are in the midst of a crisis, one of climate, one of biodiversity, one of mentality. We have long hurt the environment by pulling from it non-renewable resources and putting into it non-biodegradable waste. We are at a turning point. The importance of skipping the stuff should not be underestimated. Indeed, the namesake of Intro 1775B is all about using less, asking consumers to think before using. The same idea has been implemented now with CM Rosenthal's Skip the Straw Bill, and I believe we will be pleased with its results. Being sustainable is about more than just buying green products. It is about living in harmony with our ecosystem, understanding that the waste we generate actually goes somewhere, and more often than not, that it goes into nature in the form of large debris, bulk plastics, sometimes in the form of stealthy microplastics that enter our food and bodies. The best way to reduce harmful debris and chemicals from entering our environment is by reducing how much we use. Skip the stuff is a necessary step forward in this fight. Our environment is becoming inundated with disposable utensils, napkins, and other single-use items. Just think about all the recent complaints about overflowing garbage receptacles around the city. Skip the stuff can help with this. Let consumers ask for what they need. Let us stop living in excess. The New York City group of the Sierra Club urges the City Council to support Intro 1775B, Skip the Stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now call on Cassia Patel, followed by Brian Langloss, and then Rain Manley Robertson. Cassia Patel.
Clock is ready.
Hi all, good morning, Council Committee, and thank you to all Council members, co-sponsors, and supporters in this room. Special thank you to Matt Gov and Rain Manley Robertson for coordinating in your tireless leadership and rallying our reusable NYC coalition. And thank you all for allowing me to testify here today. My name is Cassia Patel. I'm the Program Director at Oceanic Global. And we really focus on behavior change, working at grassroots levels and also with businesses. And so our history in New York City has been to engage primarily the hospitality sector in eliminating single-use plastics and improving waste management. So we were actually a part of the effort surrounding the straw bill in partnership with the WCS Give a Sip campaign and Lonely Whale to get 100 businesses to move away from using single-use plastic straws in support of that legislation. Similarly here, we've been reaching out to our industry partners throughout New York City. Sadly, we weren't able to get more to join today, although I know we'll be hearing from some today as well. And many have actually already stopped offering single-use plastic utensils and in support of this movement and are seeing cost savings through that as well. So I do want to mention that while this is already happening by pioneering businesses, legislation is so crucial to make sure that we have a level playing field and all businesses are really acting in the same way and can get that same recognition, as well as consumers are really starting to demand sustainable practices and are choosing to support businesses that are offering those options for them as well. So our work is more voluntary, but it goes really hand in hand with the enforcement measures and the legislative law, and absolutely here that we need to be compassionate and supportive of our local businesses, especially in this moment, and that this is a great way to do that and to start tackling single-use plastics with the hospitality industry here in New York City. So I urge the council to pass this legislation. Oceanic Global is supportive of Council Member Van Bramer's Skip the Stuff Bill, Intro 1775. Thank you all.
Thank you. Next, I will call on Brian Langloss, followed by Rain Manley Robertson, and then Alexis Goldsmith. Brian Langloss.
Clock is ready.
Good morning. Thank you, Councilmember Chen, Councilmember Van Bramer, and committee members for the opportunity to testify in support of the Skip the Stuff ordinance. My name is Brian Langloss, and I'm the New York Field Representative at Oceana. Oceana is the largest international advocacy organization dedicated solely to ocean conservation. Plastic pollution is a growing threat to the world's oceans, as well as our food, health, and the climate. Each year, an estimated 33 billion pounds of plastic enter the marine environment. This is roughly equivalent to 2 garbage trucks full of plastic being dumped into the oceans every minute. Plastic pollution is everywhere. Scientists have found plastic floating on the surface of the ocean, washing up on the world's most remote coastlines, melting in Arctic sea ice, raining onto the Rocky Mountains, and even sitting at the deepest part of the ocean floor. It's even been found in beer and honey. As plastics continue to flood into our oceans and other waterways, the list of marine species affected by plastic pollution expands. A piece of plastic can look like food to a fish, turtle, dolphin, whale, or bird. Tens of thousands of individual marine animals have been observed suffering from entanglement or ingestion of plastic, and plastic ingestion and entanglement can lead animals to die from starvation or suffocation. While we begin to realize the extent of plastic pollution's effects, plastic production continues to increase at a rapid rate. The plastics industry expects annual production will more than triple by 2050. As plastic production increases, so will the amount of plastic entering into the oceans. Recycling is not enough to solve the plastic pollution crisis. In fact, only 9% of all the plastic waste ever produced has been recycled. The rest ends up in an incinerator, a landfill, or the environment. Policies governing the production and use of single-use plastic are the most effective way to stem the flow of plastics into our oceans, and these policies are becoming more common all around the world. And in closing, the Skip the Stuff ordinance will reduce plastic pollution, help local businesses, and we urge you to pass this ordinance to truly make an impact and help protect our oceans. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. I will now call on Rain Manley Robinson, followed by Alexis Goldsmith, and then Caroline Suthloff. Rain Manley Robinson.
Clock is ready.
My name is Rain Manley Robertson, and I'm here on behalf of the Reusable NYC Coalition. Thank you to the committee for scheduling this hearing and for engaging with us on this issue. What you see in front of me is the reason I joined this coalition. Just hundreds of single-use utensils that I personally tried to refuse. A day is coming incredibly soon where all of this is going to end up the only place that it can, in the trash, and then to a landfill where New York City is going to have to store it forever. None of this can be recycled, so we're just going to have to hold on to it. I'm just one New Yorker, so I'm asking the committee to think about the millions of us with drawers that are filled with all this stuff that we didn't ask for and that we don't need. We're ordering takeout to our homes where we've got what we need: reusable forks and knives, cloth napkins, bottles of ketchup. Beyond the residents, I'm asking the committee to think about the owners of our restaurants. As Councilmember Van Bramer said, in LA, they passed similar legislation, and we're already seeing that restaurants who've made the switch are saving approximately $3,000 a year. When you're operating on razor-thin margins, money like that can make a huge difference. Beyond the restaurants, I asked the committee to think about the city itself. Think of our streets, our parks, our rivers, our oceans, our wildlife, and all the single-use waste that's bound to pollute it if we don't divert it. And beyond our city, I asked the committee to think about our planet. Plastic production is a huge contributor to greenhouse gas emissions, and New York City has to continue to invest in climate solutions, as we've done with the plastic bag ban and more. With all this in mind, the solution is simple and elegant. Skip the stuff. Don't give it to us unless we ask for it. Thank you to the committee for your commitment to this great city and for making space for us to make our voices heard about why we think this is so important. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Councilmember Van Bramer has his hand raised.
Yes, thank you very much. So I'm grateful to all of the advocates who are here testifying, who've been part of this coalition. But I do want to single you out, Rain, because your advocacy on social media, I know you've been leading the effort to call many of our colleagues. You personally have been successful in getting council members to sign on to the legislation. So just want to thank all of the folks who are here testifying, all the folks part of the coalition. But Rain, you are all over my social media feed, and I say that in a very, very complimentary way. So thank you so much for everything you've done. And I thought Eric had a really good visual for this hearing, but and my staff said we need a photo of Eric's board. And I said, you can't see her yet, but wait until Rain comes up. She's got a really good visualization of the problem here. So thank you again to everyone, and thank you, Rain.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Van Bramer. It's been an honor and a pleasure to be in contact with your office, with Jack every single week. And it's been wonderful to see local government in action. So thank you so much for your leadership. Thank you so much to all the members of the committee who took all of our calls and all of our emails. You guys were so wonderful. So we appreciate it immensely. And I'm so happy that this day is finally here. So thank you for having all of us.
Thank you. I will now call on Alexis Goldsmith, followed by Carolyn Suflo, and then Diana Blackwell. Alexis Goldsmith.
Clock is ready.
Hi, thank you. My name is Alexis Goldsmith, and I work with Beyond Plastics based at Bennington College. I applaud the council for taking this important step and holding a hearing on the Skip the Stuff bill. This is a very important plastic waste reduction bill that will complement the New York City Skip the Straw bill, the New York State plastic bag ban, and the New York State polystyrene ban that goes into effect on January 1st. I do believe this rule will help New York City businesses and encourage more people to order takeout. A 2019 study from Shelton Group called Waking the Sleeping Giant found that half of Americans have changed their spending habits to avoid plastics. A full third of those consumers chose to buy products that did not have plastic packaging, regardless of the price or the quality. This signals an important shift in consumption patterns that should encourage stronger rules cutting down unnecessary single-use plastics. It is important to note that single-use plastic utensils will be available upon request for those who need them. It can't be oversaid how quickly the problem of plastic pollution is expanding as plastic production facilities in the U.S. Could quadruple capacity by just 2050, and emissions from productions will exceed U.S. coal emissions by just 2030. The fence line communities where these facilities would be built have made it clear they do not want these facilities, and I would argue this expansion is being driven by the extraction of fossil fuels rather than demand for plastics. We really need rules like Skip the Stuff in the US's largest city, which has a metropolitan area of 20.1 million people, to signal that the theory of the single-use economy is changing. I've also struggled with that decision of whether to order takeout and support my local businesses or to get the plastic utensils that I really don't want. But I was so happy. Over Thanksgiving, I went to Charlene's in Brooklyn and I got a paper straw. So I know that this is changing and the new normal will not rely on unnecessary plastics. So thank you.
We also have been joined by Councilmember Lander.
Thank you, Councilmember Chin. Next will be Carolyn Susloff, followed by Diana Blackwell, and then Jane Selden. Caroline Susloff.
Time begins.
Good morning. My name is Caroline Susloff, and I'm a legal fellow in the Environmental Justice Program at New York Lawyers for the Public Interest, or NILPI as we call it. NILPI works with communities across New York City to combat inequalities, injustices, and infringements on civil rights. Our environmental justice program has advocated and litigated against the inequitable distribution of environmental burdens and benefits in our city for almost 3 decades. Thank you to the Council, the Committee on Consumer Affairs and Business Licensing, and Chair Chin for the opportunity to testify in support of Intro 1775B, the Skip the Stuff bill. For decades, we have partnered with environmental justice communities to fight for a more equitable solid waste management system. Our city's waste infrastructure, such as waste transfer stations and truck depots, has historically been concentrated in a few low-income communities of color. These communities have for too long borne the brunt of the resulting poor air quality, unsafe traffic, noise, odors, and vermin with measurable repercussions for public health. For this reason, NILPI has long supported comprehensive, equitable reforms to reduce and divert the massive amount of waste that New York City currently trucks to landfills and incinerators. Reducing waste at its source is an important piece of this effort because the more solid waste that is produced, the more the communities who live adjacent to waste infrastructure suffer. We urge the city to build on the widespread behavior changes that the single-use bag fee has enabled and do the same with other single-use plastics. There is an especially urgent need for waste reduction on the commercial side, and this bill is well-timed to help support the implementation of Local Law 199 of 2019, New York's landmark commercial waste zones law. It is our recommendation that the commercial waste zone contracts being negotiated next year will include strong incentives for both the selected haulers and their customers to implement robust waste reduction programs. This bill will help business to reduce one source of plastic waste. Reducing our city's reliance on single-use plastics has far-reaching implications for environmental justice, affecting communities, environmental justice communities in other parts of the country as well, and implications also for climate pollution. Reducing plastic usage in our city is thus a step towards climate resilience. We therefore urge the council to vote to skip this stuff. Thank you all for your time and consideration today.
Thank you. Next, I will call on Diana Blackwell, followed by Jane Selden, and then Debbie Lee Cohen. Diana Blackwell.
Clock is ready.
Good morning. My name is Diana Blackwell from the Frederick E. Samuel Development at NYCHA. Good morning, Acting Chair Chin and the New York City Council members here as part of the Committee of Consumer Affairs and Business Licensing. Thank you for scheduling today's hearing on the proposed Skip the Stuff ordinance to reduce plastic pollution through the common sense provision that this ordinance is passed would require restaurants to distribute single-use plastic utilities by request only in deliveries and takeout. I'm speaking to you today from my neighborhood in Central Harlem as both a resident and the Fred Samuel Association president, NYCHA. As an advocate for public and affordable housing, and as a member of the Manhattan SWAB, I serve a diverse community of residents with a goal of preserving our neighborhood's quality of life. As such, I strongly advocate for the Skip the Stuff ordinance to be recommended for a council-wide vote and pass. As with most New Yorkers, residents of public and affordable housing suffer when the neighborhood gets caught in the crossfire of big plastic corporations trying to pass off their costs of doing business and our city trying to pay for it. The result is that our trees, our doorsteps, our communities, and our way of life gets trashed with plastic products that are used once, yet made from a material that lasts for generations. This must stop. Our community needs plastic-free choices. We must be able to say no. No to plastic, and the Skip the Stuff ordinance will protect our ability to do so. For residents of affordable and public housings and for our city at large, I urge you to move the Skip the Stuff ordinance forward and pass it into law. Thank you.
Thank you. I now call on Jane Selden, followed by Debbie Lee Cohen, and then Sandra Noonan. Jane Selden.
Clock is ready.
My name is Jane Selden, and I'm testifying today on behalf of the climate activist group 350 NYC. We at 350 know that the world can't reach its greenhouse gas emissions reduction goals without seriously addressing the environmental impact of plastic. Plastic production has grown exponentially in the last 20 years. In fact, if plastics were a country, it would be the 5th largest emitter of greenhouse gases in the world. The sourcing, production, and disposal of plastic isn't only accelerating the climate crisis, but has a disproportionate impact on the health of low-income communities and communities of color. The most effective way to address the single-use plastic pandemic is to reduce demand for it, which is why 350 NYC fully supports the Skip the Stuff bill. Plastic's adverse impact on the environment and human health begins with its sourcing. 99% is a product of the fossil fuel industry, much of it in the US a byproduct of fracking. Methane is released during fracking. It's a greenhouse gas with 84 times the global warming potential of CO2 in the short term. And local communities are exposed to over 170 chemicals the EPA has identified as harmful to human health. Next is the production stage, which happens at ethane cracker plants. According to a recent report by Beyond Plastics, in 2020, these plants and the on-site power plants needed to operate them released greenhouse gas emissions equivalent to 35 coal plants. And these plants also emit toxic chemicals that poison frontline communities to the extent that there's one area of Louisiana that's known as Cancer Alley. The final stage is disposal, but as has been pointed out, recycling rate is less than 9% for plastic. So it usually ends up in landfill, where it can take hundreds of years to decompose and will leak chemicals into the local groundwater. Even worse is when it's incinerated, it produces CO2 and other greenhouse gases and dangerous chemicals, including dioxins and heavy metal.
Time expired.
Almost done. In the United States, 80% of these incinerators are located in low-income communities and communities of color. We can't recycle our way out of the problem. We need to focus on solutions requiring us to reduce, reuse, and refill. Intro 1775 is an important step in the right direction. We urge the City Council to pass the Skip the Stuff bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from Debbie Lee Cullen, followed by Sandra Noonan, and then Lauren Sweeney. Debbie Lee Cullen.
Clock is ready.
Good morning, Councilwoman Chin and members of the committee. Thank you for this opportunity to testify. I'm Debbie Lee Cohen, the Executive Director and founder of Cafeteria Culture and co-director, producer of the movie Microplastic Madness. I'm also a stage 4 cancer patient. Cafeteria Culture has been developing innovative interdisciplinary zero waste climate education, partnering with DOE students and staff on zero waste pilots and victories since 2010. And thank you, Councilwoman Chin, for your support on many of those. We strongly support Intro's 1775 Skip the Stuff. It's a critical step towards our city's climate mitigation and zero waste goals. And we urgently need our policymakers, like all of you, to understand the connection between plastics, public health, and the climate emergency. We need more laws like this. We need to support regulations to carefully consider city contracts that address the compounding problems of plastic pollution, public health, and environmental degradation, and to protect our most vulnerable communities and our children before it's too late. Passing the Skip the Stuff bill is a timely action that demonstrates your concern for these overlapping crises. Plastics are made from a multitude of toxic chemicals as well as fossil fuels, as you heard. When in the environment, they do not biodegrade. They break down into small pieces called microplastics, which have caused near permanent contamination of the environment. They are in the air we breathe, our soil, our food that we eat. Scientists have found microplastics in our organs, human stool, and in human placentas. Scientists warn that microplastics constitute a public health threat worse than asbestos. As a stage 4 cancer patient who gets chemo every other week, I feel compelled to address this. I worked as a scenic designer with toxic plastics in my formative years. And I know firsthand how toxic plastic pollution, microplastic dust, can negatively impact one's life. I don't wish this on anyone. And I feel like this is such an easy step to protect the health of people. And I'm passionate about it. If you want to talk to me afterwards, I can't prove that my cancer is related to plastic, but I've seen thousands and thousands of images of my lungs and of my liver, and I don't wish that on anybody else. It's a lot of suffering to go through. New York City single-use plastics are contributing to the climate emergency. Our food service industry, including our publicly funded school food meals, waste precious dollars on the purchase and disposal of unacceptable amounts of single-use plastic items, many that never even get used before they're thrown away. Knowing that much of Manhattan's garbage is being exported to Newark, New Jersey on a nightly basis, it's really important for us to look at how our plastic disposal also is affecting communities of color and communities, our neighbors in Newark, New Jersey. And the winds do not always blow west. So why would we want to give out more plastic that most of it is wasted and not necessary, and actually for the danger of impacting our neighbors' health and our own health? I just want to end this with last spring, our 5th grade students in our programs at PS 188, the Island School, and PS 34, Franklin D. Roosevelt School. They're both schools on the Lower East Side, programs funded by New York City Council. Thank you. They studied about the plastic connection to climate and environmental justice. They collected plastic waste data from their own school lunches, and they analyzed their own data. They asked their school food manager if she could make plastic utensils and napkin packages available by request only, and she agreed. And within 1 week, the change was made in those 2 schools. After they learned about their victory, they screamed, "Deli's next!" I urge you, let's learn from our children, let's skip the stuff, and let's protect their health and the health of all of our vulnerable communities. Thank you so much for this time to speak.
Thank you. Next,
Thank you, Debbie. Yes. I just wanted to really thank you for all your work with the kids and the cafeteria culture. I mean, I know a lot of the council member, we have really had the honor of working with you. And let's finish this session with a strong, passage of this bill, and we will have, done quite a bit on this plastic issue. So thank you, Debbie, and I wish you, the best of health. I mean, you keep going strong. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So next we will hear from Sandra Noonan, followed by Lauren Sweeney, and then Madeline McGilvery. Sandra Noonan.
Clock is ready.
Good morning. My name is Sandra Noonan, and I am Chief Sustainability Officer of Just Salad. We are a New York City-based restaurant chain founded in 2006 in New York City, and we have 25 locations spanning Manhattan and Brooklyn currently. Today, I want to express my full support for the Skip the Stuff bill. At Just Salad, we offer a 10-cent discount to any delivery customer who opts out of utensils on orderjustsalad.com. But this voluntary effort is not enough to eliminate unnecessary utensil waste in the restaurant industry. In the 2 years since the Skip the Stuff bill was introduced, hundreds of millions of pounds of non-recyclable throwaway plastics have accumulated in streets and landfills. We believe it's time to make it mandatory for New Yorkers to actively request to receive these items with their food delivery and takeout orders. We need policies like Skip the Stuff to make this uniform across our industry and help to accelerate the cultural change that has to happen in order for our city and our society to stop being wantonly wasteful. As a restaurant leader and as a consumer, I must say that I'm utterly sick and tired of the unwanted utensil waste that enters my home as well every time I order delivery, not from Just Salad. And even when I request no utensils, I still receive them because there are no consequences and no policies telling restaurants that this wasteful behavior must stop. If we do not pass Skip the Stuff, we will continue to have a patchwork of restaurants who are trying to lead this change. That is suboptimal because a patchwork system confuses the public and fails to establish the necessary no waste default. Failing to pass this measure will also impose extra burdens on restaurants like Just Salad that do want to do the right thing in the form of extra training and communication with customers.
Time expired.
By passing this measure, you will send a clear signal to restaurants that their hard work to eliminate unnecessary plastic are appreciated and supported. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from Lauren Sweeney, followed by Madeline McGilvery, and then Judith Weiss. Lauren Sweeney.
Clock is ready.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here today. My name is Lauren Sweeney. I'm co-founder and CMO of Deliver Zero, a network of reusable containers intended to reduce single-use plastic. So in my role as a co-founder in Deliver Zero, I've understood very well the impacts that plastic has on the environment, both its upstream and downstream impacts. Manufacturing and shipping all of this stuff creates emissions, and then disposing of it. There's no reliable means of disposing of single-use plastic forks. So they're ending up in landfills, they're ending up in the natural environment, and this is a problem that could very easily be solved by making single-use utensils opt-in only. There's absolutely no reason to continue sending out utensils that customers do not want. And similarly, when customers do want utensils, it should be easy for them to opt in and say, I do want utensils, because some environmentally conscious chains have, begun not including them by default because of a shifting customer preference towards not including this stuff. So the Skip the Stuff bill will help restaurants keep their customers happy by including utensils when the customer wants them, and by not including them when the customer does not want them, and reducing significant amounts of waste in the process. We have a limited amount of time to deal with climate change. We need to do everything we possibly can. Some climate solutions are going to be difficult and cumbersome to enact. It's worth it. Some are very simple and straightforward, and this is one of the simple, straightforward, and obvious choices to make. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from Madeline McGilvery, then Judith Weiss, followed by Jonathan Jackson. Madeline McGilvery.
Clock is ready.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Council Member Van Bramer, committee members, and fellow panelists. Thank you for this opportunity to be heard. My name is Madeline McGillivray Wallace, and I'm a native New Yorker, born and raised. I am an ambassador of the Five Gyres Institute, a prominent plastic and microplastics research and education organization. My research background is in microplastics, and I've witnessed devastating plastic pollution around the globe. I'm also the Climate Science and Policy Fellow for Seeding Sovereignty, an Indigenous rights organization where I focus on plastics and climate. But above all, I'm a New Yorker who gets takeout and, like most of us, has a pile of completely unnecessary plastic utensils sitting in their home. I was so excited to hear about this bill, thanks to the tireless work by Rain Manley. Thank you so much to everyone involved in bringing this bill to the fore. So much so that I knew I had to testify. This is my first public hearing testimony. The reasons for the passing of this bill are seemingly endless. Most takeout is delivered to homes and workplaces where, especially during COVID, consumers have plenty of silverware and in fact prefer eating with silverware. Restaurants are allocating a considerable chunk of their spending on purchasing, storing, packing, and delivering plastic utensils that will never be touched. All these unused plastic utensils place unnecessary burden on both the consumer and the city with how to recycle them. And finally, these plastic utensils will ultimately burden our environment because they break down into microplastics, which also impact our health. So this bill really is a win-win-win-win. And I know that myself and probably millions of New Yorkers will let out a big sigh of relief if the bill passes. Delivery, as we all know, is convenient, but what to do with these utensils is extremely inconvenient. And for me and many others, the guilt is real. So as both a scientist and a New Yorker, I know that these local legislative measures are the first step in moving toward a sustainable future and showcasing our city as a global leader. This one really couldn't be easier. So let's skip the stuff. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So next we will hear from Judith Weiss, followed by Jonathan Jackson, and then Anna Satz. Judith Weiss.
Clock is ready.
Good morning. Thank you for having this hearing and having this bill. I'm Judith Weiss. I'm a marine biologist, a professor emerita from Rutgers University. My studies over many decades have focused on estuaries and coastal areas, and one of my focuses has been pollution. I've spent a great deal of time around our local waters in New York and northern New Jersey doing studies. Plastic waste was initially found on beaches and ocean environments, but now has been found worldwide in fresh water, the air, soil, and our own bodies. The beaches in New York and New Jersey and other places are contaminated with plastic waste that may take centuries to break down. Animals mistake plastic for food and consume it. Many animals, marine animals, fish, crabs, clams, and so forth, eat a lot of tiny pieces of plastic, that is microplastics that have been mentioned before. They can arise from breakdown of larger pieces like utensils. And this may cause great problems in those animals. These microplastics also go up the food chain. If a small fish eats it, it can get eaten by a bigger fish and then that fish can end up on our dinner plate. So we are full of plastics ourselves. Single-use plastic is really very commonly found because there's just so much of it. And the numbers have been increasing. And these include the utensils and foodware and straws that can be included in this bill. This is a no-brainer to pass this bill. This is beneficial to the environment, beneficial to restaurants, which will save money by not having to provide them to everybody.
Right.
I think this bill is a win-win situation, and I thank you for having the hearing, and I thank you for putting forth this great bill.
Thank you. Next, I will call on Jonathan Jackson, followed by Anna Sachs, and then Patrick Houston. Jonathan Jackson.
Clock is ready.
Hello, can you hear me?
We hear you.
Oh, great. Okay, I just want to thank everybody for getting this bill together. I'm just a regular person, not affiliated with any organization, although I'm here because through Rainey Manley and her advocacy and her getting volunteers together to call, like, city council members about this bill. And it was great. As soon as I heard about this bill, it was like, wow, this is perfect, because normally some bill, there's some group and they have all their right to be opposed to new bills, but normally environmental bills also have their kind of opposition, but I really don't see any opposition in this bill. Even as far as like anti-regulation situation, because it really is just a choice. And instead of the choice or the lack of choice by just being automatically given all this stuff that we don't need. So, it really, I don't see any negative impacts as far as that, and just lots of positives. Thirdly, there's another kind of campaign going, the cutlery thing that I saw just online the other day, and it's really kind of pressurizing the delivery apps and stuff to institute this idea of opting in to having your plastic and napkins and condiments included in your takeout, which often most is at home. But what I wanted to say to that was that I think it's more important that that we have a law here rather than the apps having this thing that could change in the future. And we need, this is the time now. I mean, it's such a great bill. We shouldn't leave it up to the apps to do that. Although I do commend their positive and positive actions and the understanding of the bill. Anyway, thank you, everybody, and I hope the bill passes. It's going to be great for New York. With 80 million consumers, it's be a big deal.
I'm expired.
Thank you. Next, I will call on Anna Sachs, followed by Patrick Houston, and then Anita Chan. Anna Sachs.
Clock is ready.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anna Sachs. I'm a New Yorker involved in waste issues. I wanted to show just a few of my useless utensils that I didn't ask for, but I received them anyways, and I have too much guilt to throw them away, so I just stockpiled them, and I think that's very relatable and something similar to what Eric and Wayne were talking about. Regarding recycling, you can't recycle this. The plastic will not make its way through the recycling machinery. It will fall through the literal cracks. Regarding composting, if it's compostable, no composters actually want this material. It's bulky. It doesn't add nutritional value to the compost, and it actually eliminates end markets because the finished compost can't be certified organic if it accepts these compostable materials. So there really is no alternative other to landfill or incinerate it at the end. I think this is such common sense legislation that, like we've been saying, there's no opposition really to this. It's a win-win for the environment, for individuals, for the restaurant industry, because they're going to be reducing costs. And I think, just to address the council directly, it does not bode well for the council if this does not pass. It is so common sense, low-hanging fruit, non-controversial. There are going to be more difficult, legislative bills coming up about the environment. This is not one of them. And so if this is unable to pass, that's honestly really depressing. And it, I think, will, as a result of this not passing and as a result of if this doesn't pass, I think it will hurt the council and it will leave a bad legacy for those in it right now. So that's what I wanted to say. This should be easy, and I hope this passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from Patrick Houston and then Anita Chan. Patrick Houston.
Clock is ready.
Great.
Okay, sorry, I was muted. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for holding this hearing today. My name is Patrick Houston. I'm a resident of Brooklyn, New York, concerned about plastic waste and environmental sustainability. Intro 1775B is a common sense piece of legislation to help fight the plastics crisis, cut costs for restaurants, cut costs for New York City waste management, and reduce environmental pollution to communities and individuals. Plastics are infiltrating nearly every part of our environment. They have been found not only in our oceans and natural environments, but also in our food, water, air, rain, and our bodies. According to a study by the World Wildlife Fund for Nature, each human on Earth is consuming nearly 5 grams of plastic per week. In the last 18 years, since 2002, we have produced more than half of the plastics ever created. If we continue apace our plastics production and consumption, it is with apace with our plastics production and consumption, it's predicted that the tonnage of plastics by 2030 will be near roughly half the tonnage of all the fish we catch annually. We are dramatically and unsustainably altering our environment and ecology. Plastic has also has significant financial costs. As has been mentioned, New York City spends about an estimated $42 million per year on processing plastics waste. As for plastics recycling, we know it's more myth than reality. According to the journal Science Advances, only 9% of the 6.3 trillion kilograms of plastics created since 1950 has ever been recycled. And while I live in Brooklyn, I'm originally from Pennsylvania. In 2016, I toured the Cavanna Waste-to-Energy plant in Chester County. This incineration plant spews harmful emissions into the environmental justice Chester community in which it is located. Finishing up here, I know my time's getting short. It was cited as one of the largest polluters of its kind in the US. And from where are tons of the waste at the Cavanna incinerator shipped? From New York City. Included in my testimony, which I'll submit for the record, is also the connection of to the fossil fuel industry, who, under fire for cooking the planet, is now trying to shift to plastics and building plants like the large Royal Dutch Shell petrochemicals plant in Pennsylvania as well, which produces plastic ingredients. So finally, thank you, Councilmember Bramer. Thank you, everyone who's fighting on this. Let's move this forward. Let's pass this legislation, lower costs for businesses, for our city, mitigate damage to the environment and our public health. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. The next witness I will call is Anita Chan. Anita Chan.
Clock is ready.
Good morning. My name is Nina, and I'm the Zero Waste Manager at Earth Matter New York, a nonprofit environmental organization on Governor's Island. I am in support of the Skip the Stuff bill. Most of us who order takeout or delivery probably have a collection of unused single-use utensils and condom packets that were automatically given, and even if we opted out in the special instructions. We really need to avoid the wasteful practice of automatically giving these things, at which in many cases the food and drinks are consumed at home or other settings where supplies are already available. Production of single-use items, much of which is plastic, creates air and water pollution and often leads to litter from improper disposal. These past 2 years, the use of single-use items has only increased based on the claim that it is safer to use them instead of reusables during COVID-19. However, many studies have already proved that to be a false claim. On Governor's Island, Earth Matter has been working with food and drink vendors to reduce the use of unnecessary items when serving food and drinks. Allowing customers to opt in to receiving utensils, napkins, and condiments rather than getting them by default really makes a huge difference. This proactive behavior is one of the strategies we use as part of the Zero Waste Island initiative, a partnership with the Trust of Governors Island. An individual instance may seem minor, but it really adds up over time to all this unnecessary waste and pollution. When reuse isn't a viable option, we need to take action to cut down where we can and be responsible for all the waste that we generate. This bill will create a win-win-win situation. Restaurants will be able to save money and space because they can buy less inventory. Our environment will benefit as less waste will be generated, and the demand for single-use production and the associated transportation footprint costs will decrease. This bill will help with a smoother transition to reuse models. Customers will be able to live a more sustainable lifestyle and have less clutter of single-use items, signaling to others that they can make a choice to refuse what they don't need. Let's make the call and pass this bill to cut down the waste without compromising the needs of customers. Thank you.
Thank you. If I have inadvertently missed any public witnesses who have registered to testify today and have yet to be called, please use the Zoom raise hand function and you will be called on in the order you've raised your hand. I will note that we've just been joined by Councilmember Menchaca as well. Now, Acting Chair or Bill Sponsor, Councilmember Van Bramer, do either of you have closing remarks? Councilmember Van Bramer?
Yeah.
Thank you very much to Acting Chair Margaret Chin for being with us and leading us here. I want to thank Chair Ayala, Speaker Johnson, Jason Goldman, and everyone who allowed for this moment to take place, all the advocates, everyone who's worked on this, all the co-sponsors. I don't know exactly how many people we had testify here today, but it was a significant big group, everyone supportive of this on so many different levels. So I'm just absolutely thrilled that we've taken it to this point. And now we have one, of course, last important thing to do, which is to pass the bill. So thank you, everyone. Eric says 22 organizations and advocates testified. Thank you all very, very much. Thank you very much, Chair Chin.
Thank you, Councilmember Van Bramer, for sponsoring this bill and getting, all of us to join you in co-sponsoring. And thank you to all the advocates. I mean, it's been an honor working with all of you, trying to get to zero waste. And I remember, all the work that we did on the plastic bag bill ended up being the plastic ban from the state. But yeah, cafeteria culture and all the environmental group and all the great work that you have done. And we will definitely work to make sure that we pass this bill before the end of session. And then in the next session, we're counting all of you and all of us to continue on this journey to make sure that we get to zero waste. So I also wanted to thank our committee council, all the committee staff, Stephanie Joan, Senior Legislative Counsel, Leah Skrupiak, who moderated today's hearing. Thank you, Leah. Noah Messler, our Senior Legislative Policy Analyst, and Jay Florentine Kabor, our Financial Analyst of this committee. And thank you to all the sergeants for helping us run this hearing smoothly. And we will look forward to the passage of this bill. And thank you again, everyone, for being here today.